Oh, hello, everybody. Hello, Craig. You got in first. Good to see you. Hope you've got all the fam there. And Sarah and all the tricks. Hello, Cotty and John. Hello, hello. Andrew and Shell are back. How lovely to have you back. Peter and Karen. Hello. Isn't that a beautiful picture of grapes? We had the gorgeous Catherine come and take some photos this week. Was it this week or late last week? Anyway, maybe late last week, on Friday, I think it was. And she's just amazing. So you'll get lots of new beautiful photos coming up over the next little while. So she's a bit of a treasure. Hello, Emily and Kevin. How you going? Good to see you. I'm in full vintage mode today. So I've got my dirty old vintage t-shirt on, and I've managed to. The nice thing about this short hair is that you just do that to do it, and whatever it does is done. So, and we have a beautiful Chardonnay today. We might be getting a visit from maybe Jeremy, maybe Peter and or Millie, who are doing vintage with us. They're still out there tidying up. So it's the Chardonnay Robinson 2012. And hello, David. Oh, David, hello. I haven't seen that name come up before. Welcome. Nice to see you. And we've also got Matthew and his partner joining in. Welcome. Lovely to see you. It's nice to have some new people along. Very good. Very good. All right. So Robinson Chardonnay 2012. We have looked at this a little while ago, but I do think that when we've got some nice museum stock, and particularly from a beautiful vintage like 2012, it's nice to check in every now and again, see how it's progressing. Also, because you guys are being regular members of Drinks with Kate, that also means that you have access to the wine club. We're working out how to kind of formalize it so that you can sign into the sort of the back of house wine club website area, so that you can just buy these things whenever you feel like it. But if we ever have anything like this Robinson Chardonnay and you want to purchase a few bottles, then just get in contact with me afterwards and I can sort it all out for you. Sometimes we'll have museum stock that we don't have anything that we can sell. Sometimes we have museum stock that we have a bit of stock that's absolutely available to you. This wine, there's a little bit around, so don't be shy. Sonia, hello, in Malakuta, Paris, Ashley, and Althea and Matisse. Excellent. All right, Craig, this is definitely serious stuff. Let's get it in the glass. So mine is at a lovely 10 degrees centigrade out of our. It doesn't look pretty going into the glass. I do love that shot. And I'm here all by myself because the dogs are out walking with Jill and Richard, so I can have just some one-on-one time with you guys before they get back. So did I say hello, Linda? Hello, Linda. If I didn't say hello. Oh, everyone, Linda's a grandma. So congratulations, Linda. That happened since last we all gathered together. So it's very exciting. It is a beautiful colour, this wine. It's just that lovely kind of bright golden. It's not too dark, but you can certainly see that it's been around for a little while. And the nose is incredible. So have a little swirl, have a little sip, have a little taste. We'll talk about what we're smelling and tasting in a moment. Let me give you a little background on this wine first. So Robinson Vineyard, most of you know, but just a little reminder, the Robinson Vineyard is about 5 kilometres to the south of us. We don't own it. It's owned by friends of ours. It used to be owned by old friends of ours. It's now owned by new friends of ours, which is very exciting. It's a beautiful vineyard. It's one of the bigger vineyards on the Mornington Peninsula, and it mostly has Chardonnay and Pinot Noir planted. So it's to the south of here by about 5 kilometres, so it's a tiny bit cooler, but it's slightly more sheltered. So the fruit ripens quite differently. We've been taking fruit from the Robinson Vineyard now since 2008 for the Chardonnay, I think, and 2009 for the Pinot. It might be the other way around. Anyway, we might have had some Pinot Noir in 2007. Anyway, late 2000s we started taking fruit from the Robinson Vineyard. First of all, to sort of grow our ability to make a bit more of the estate quality wines. And we realized that the flavor profiles and the characters of the fruit from the Robinson vineyard very different from what we're getting from the fruit that we grow here. And so we thought, why don't we make everything separately. So with the Chardonnays, we pick all the parcels of different parts of the vineyard, different age vines, different clones separately, and they all get pressed and then go to barrel separately. So all of the different parcels are kept separate until we make decisions about what's going to go where for bottling. We realised very early on in the piece that the best of the barrels of Robinson wine were very special and different from what we make here. So we decided in 2008 to make a little bit of single vineyard Robinson Chardonnay and a little bit of Robinson Pinot. And from 2010, we felt that we'd kind of got the hang of when to pick the fruit, how to make the wine. So we released it as officially a single vineyard wine. So 2012 was the third official Robinson Chardonnay. So 2010 was quite a warm year. It was after the drought broke, so it was kind of it was a bit of a Goldilocks year for people. I think you've heard me use that term before. Goldilocks is when things are not too hot, not too cold, just right, all the way through the vintage. You should be able to make really good wine, even if you don't really know what you're doing in a Goldilocks year. Then 2011 came along, and it was absolutely horrific because it rained for almost 12 months. It was very overcast. We didn't get a lot of sunshine during summer, and we got much more humidity even when it was hot and not raining than we usually would have in this part of the world. So 2011 was really tricky, and we have had some of the 2011 Chardonnays before, and we will come back and look at them again because they're looking terrific. 2011 Chardonnays, both the Robinson and the McIntyre, took about a month longer than they usually do to ripen, and they were very, very austere when they were young. So we came to 2012, and people really didn't know the Robinson single vineyard wine yet when we first released it. 2012 was a beautiful vintage. It was quite cool. So we had quite restrained flavours, lovely structure, but really beautiful balance in the wine. And when this wine was young, it seemed when it was young to be quite straightforward. It was very kind of lemony. Hello, Matthew and Claudia. Lovely to see you. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Cheers. It's lovely that you could join us. I hope you found something to nibble on while you're drinking. So I'm just talking about 2012 as vintage. And when we released the wines, we thought they were pretty special, but they were quite restrained. And I think that the combination of them being the Robinson Vineyard wines from Moorooduc Estate not being very well established yet and being a little more expensive than the estate wine, people didn't know what to expect. And that kind of quite straightforward character of the wine when it was young, that really kind of had this really kind of lemon citrus drive to it, had a little bit of white floral, but didn't have a lot of depth or complexity. So it was quite a difficult wine to sell. And in the end, we put some of it in the cellar for the museum because we thought once we've got people on board with these Robinson wines, it will be really lovely to be able to re-release some of the early ones to show people how beautiful they are and how well they age. So Craig's pointed out that it's really smooth. The acid's given way to apricot fruit characters. And I think that's right. That's really interesting because, as I say, when it was young, it was just very lemony and didn't have anything else going on. Whereas now when you stick your nose in it, I get a real kind of cashew nut aromatic. And Matthew messaged me earlier today and said, what should we eat? Didn't get the email about the chicken recipe. But I said, even if you've just got some cashews at home, a bowl of cashew nuts would be fantastic with this wine because it's got that kind of cashew nuttiness on the nose. Hello, Zach, Jack and Hannah. Lovely to see you. Cheers. It's also got a really beautiful kind of honeyed note, but it also smells to me like lemon curd. There's definitely an apricot fruit character there, just sort of coming through as the wine opens up in the air. I'm going to pop some in my mouth now because it's actually been a great day. I'll tell you about the day later, but it's nice to be sitting down and having a glass of white wine with you guys. Mm. So yeah, it's got that lovely tanginess to it from the acid. It's got a little bit of stone fruit, a little bit of apricot, a little bit of peach, stone fruit. We've still got that lemon. I think it's almost like a lemon rind, almost preserved lemon coming through, which we see more and more in the Robinson Chardonnays in later years. In 2012, it took quite a while for that to start to come through, that sort of slightly salted, preserved lemon rind character to it. But I'm seeing a little bit of that here. And there is that little bit of salinity on the finish, which just kind of cleans it up and makes you a little bit thirsty for a bit more, a bit hungry for a little nibble of something. It's a very good wine to drink with a couple of friends and something delicious to nibble on while you're drinking it. Definitely lemon curd, says Cotty, and a hint of cream. Yeah, there is sort of almost a clotted cream kind of character to it. It's almost caramel, but it's not quite gone that far yet, which I think is really cool. Shell, I'm so glad that the hummus is a good option. I make hummus at home all the time. I don't know if Sue and Jeff are on today and not being able to chat, but my next door neighbours, they probably have to eat my hummus far too often. But it is a really good. And I think that a wine like this can work really, really well with chickpea-based dishes, as long as it's not too spicy, as long as there's not too much tomato. And often I like to cook chickpeas with tomato and red capsicum and things. And I think that could be a little overwhelming for this wine. But the flavours in a hummus, I think, really beautiful. That kind of earthiness of the chickpeas and the arancinis worked well. Good, Craig. What flavoured arancinis are you eating today? What has Joan whipped up for you today? Hello, Joan. It's starting to get a little bit autumnal and chilly, so I'll have to pull out my drinks with Kate scarf soon. It's packed away safely in the scarf drawer so that it doesn't get dirty. Cheese and bacon, yum. I do think a wine like this, and as it's opening up, that sort of slightly caramel, burnt, sort of brown butter, burnt butter kind of character is coming through more. You could match it to sort of a pumpkin and burnt butter and sage pasta dish as well, would work really, really nicely with this. And I know I promised you last week that I'd share a recipe of Jill's that wasn't the chicken recipe that I ended up sending you. So we'll have to do that another time when we're doing another older Chardonnay, which we've got a couple coming up in the next box, which is quite exciting. We're going to have a little in-depth look at some 2013s in the next box, if you haven't had a little look at it yet. And so there'll be plenty of time for doing some fancy food and wine matching next time around as well. So yeah, as the wine's opening up, a little bit more honey, a little bit more burnt butter, a little bit more nuts, but also some nice kind of savoury notes coming through as well. Oh, Cotty, did you not meet my Drinks with Kate scarf? Joan knitted me the most beautiful Drinks with Kate scarf. It's a one of a kind. So they and it's absolutely amazing. So I will, when it gets a little bit colder, I will definitely be sporting it for Drinks with Kate. Don't you worry about that. We have to think about if we want, we did our hoodies a couple of years ago. We've got some Drinks with Kate t-shirts. Hello, Rob, Deb, Alison, and Andrew. How lovely to see you. You've just missed the tasting notes for the wine, but it's still opening up and changing and evolving in the glass. So hopefully you've got something yummy to munch on and a lovely glass of wine to drink. So what's happened today that's made today so good? There's been quite a few things that have happened today. We've been doing a bit of work on the oh, Shell, what are you eating? Roasted cauliflower risotto going really well, vegan with tahini cream. Yeah, beautiful. That would be gorgeous. And I do think those flavors of tahini work really well with this wine as well. So we might what I thought I'd do for at least one of the Chardonnays next round is put together a couple of those sort of vegetarian, vegan kind of ideas. If you want to whack in a bit of meat to sort of, add an extra layer, then that'll be absolutely up to you guys. Pumpkin and sage risotto last night would have been perfect. Oh, good, you've got chicken in the oven. Good work, Deb. So yeah, I mean, these Chardonnays, when they have this sort of age, in 2012, it's 11 years old now. I think my maths is correct. Yes, Craig, the next box. You've bought it already, Craig, I think. I think it's in the mail to you. Next box is on sale. I'll double check afterwards, but I'm pretty sure you bought box 2 already, like 2 weeks ago. But yes, the next box is on sale. There's a link in the email that I sent you guys this afternoon. It's also on the shop. And if you can't find it anywhere on the internet, then give us a call and we'll sort you out. Not a problem. David, tarragon chicken 15 minutes ago. That chicken dish as well is very tantalizing when you can smell it cooking in the oven, because the tarragon and the chicken and the and the grapes kind of coalesce together to give gorgeous, and the garlic as well in it. Those smells come sort of wafting out of the oven to make you very hungry. Craig, you do buy wine in your sleep. I'm pretty sure you've got it coming, so don't worry about that. It just keeps coming in way. It's not. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's not changing that much. Got home from work early. That's good, David. It's nice. Thursday's a good day to come home from work. I did mean to ask. My plan is to start the new box in the first week of April, but I just noticed that's Easter Thursday. Is that going to be a big problem for lots of people? If it is, please email me. We can postpone it for a week, but I think if people want to start on I think it's like the 6th of April. It's the Thursday. It's Easter Thursday. But I don't want to, like, if it's going to be a huge problem because everyone's got to go to church or go on holidays or something like that, then we can postpone it for a week. Peter and Karen, a collected Drinks with Kate cookbook. Exactly that. Well, that's what I thought, David. It's a holiday on the Friday, so it's more of an excuse to have a nice little drink before. Nice way to ease our way into Easter, and we don't have to eat any chocolate until Sunday. So I think it should work quite well. So hopefully, let me know if there's a big problem, and if enough people say there's a big problem, then we can postpone it. But I think we should start. And we also need to work out what we're going to talk about next week. If we want to catch up next week, we can have a break, but we could also do a cocktail or just talk about a grape variety. We were going to talk about Riesling, and we haven't, so we could do that. So let's have a little think. And at the end of this session, I'll tell you what I was thinking. But if you've got any requests, this is the time to lodge them. All right. So, and the lemon curd and the preserved lemons coming up now in the nose. I was waiting for that to happen because it does it every time. It's funny. My little walking dogs and humans haven't come back. I might be able to have another glass of the wine before they come back and steal it from me. The other thing I love about this wine is the texture. And we've been talking about textural wines around the table during vintage a bit, because I think that in Australia for a long time, trust you, Craig, we might do Riesling, and we can talk about German Riesling versus Australian Riesling and why they're so different. We could definitely do that next week. In Australia, for a long time, wine experts and winemakers and everyone who talked about wine would talk about what the wine smells like and what it tastes like. And we're talking mostly about fruit characters, which was something that we could get a lot of in our wines. I think something changed in the late 90s, early noughties. And I think it's partly because winemakers started looking to make slightly more savoury, less fruity wines here, because those wines were delicious but a bit obvious, and people were starting to get a little bit sick of them. But also, we were having more Italian wines coming into Australia, and particularly Italian white wine is all about the texture. And it tends to have fairly restrained fruit characters. And I think today, when you talk to anyone who is serious about white wine in Australia, and we're talking about sort of these more elevated, slightly more expensive wines made in small batches, all of these things, yes, the aromatics are important. Yes, the flavours are important, but the texture is also really important to get right. And when we talk about texture with Chardonnay, it's a tricky one because we don't leave the wine on skins. So we press it off the skins and the pips and the stalks. So we're not extracting tannin in the way that we do for red wine. But if you grow the grapes well, and if you handle them a little bit roughly at the beginning of the winemaking process, then you get what we talk about what we call phenolics, which is, so tannins are phenolics. The color of wine come from phenolics, but also we have phenolics in white wine that is what we talk about when we're talking about the texture, and it's partly it's alcohol, but it's also those phenolics that come from that little bit of skin contact and that bit of kind of firm pressing in the early days, and also from the solids that we leave in the juice while the wine is fermenting and aging. So we don't let the solid bits drop out of the juice before we ferment it. And I think I've said this to you guys before, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But if you think about, when we talk about solids in grape juice, it's much easier if you think about orange juice, freshly squeezed orange juice, which has all those bits in it. And if you leave it to sit, then all the bits drop down to the bottom and you get this kind of very slightly paler coloured, but very pure sort of orange serum in the top, the juice without any bits, and then at the bottom you have all the bits that are quite obvious. Grape juice is the same thing, but the bits are not quite as chunky as they are in orange juice, so you don't see them as easily because you don't have that segmentation in a grape that you have in a citrus fruit. So when you press off the juice, then you've got solids, little bits of sort of flesh and some bits of yeast and all of that kind of thing in there. Oh, hello, Nareem. Lovely to see you. I'm glad you're enjoying the wine. Cheers. It's been, I think everyone's had a busy day today. We've had quite a few people popping in partway through, which is awesome. It's lovely to see you. Oh, hello, Fiona. Welcome. It's all right. Late's fine. We have no problem with that. The McIntyres are nothing if not late sometimes. So instead of letting those bits drop down to the bottom and losing them by not putting them in the barrels, we stir up the juice and then put it in the barrels. And those little tiny bits and pieces that are in the juice from the grapes give exactly, Fiona. You don't want David to drink it all, and I think he's almost finished cooking dinner, so that'll be good too. With all those bits in the wine while it's fermenting and also while it's aging in the barrel after fermentation, you get what we call phenolics, which is that lovely textural quality that kind of grips the sides of the cheeks and just the middle of your palate when the wine's kind of traveling through. We've also got glycerols, which are it's sort of related to the alcohol. So it's all kinds of stuff, and it's one of the things about wine texture, one of the reasons that non-alcoholic wine doesn't really work, doesn't really taste like this, is because when you take the alcohol out, no matter how fancy your alcohol removal machine is, you get a hole in the texture of the wine and it's very difficult to replace it. Sometimes they replace it with sugar, but then you've got a wine that's sweet. And otherwise, it's really, there's nothing else that you can do. So that's one of the reasons non-alcoholic wine doesn't work. So I say if you're trying to reduce your alcohol intake, just have a slightly smaller glass of wine and a bigger glass of water. Sonia, hello. Is this typical of an aged Chardonnay? So this is typical of an aged Robinson Chardonnay. And there are a lot of high quality Chardonnays which will do something similar to this. So what we see, not all Chardonnays age well. Some Chardonnays might not have the depth of flavour or concentration or structure to age well, and might just kind of fall away a bit when they get older and seem a bit flat. But when you make Chardonnay with really high quality fruit, which we do, whether it be from the Robinson vineyard or the McIntyre vineyard, what we find is that the fruitiness kind of evolves, and those tertiary characters, that nuttiness, that sort of toffee, buttery, creamy note comes up as the fruit kind of recedes a little bit. You still get a little bit of kind of lemon, but as we were saying, it's lemon curd and preserved lemon rather than fresh lemon juice, which is what you would have sort of smelt and tasted when it was young. And you tend to get with a high quality Chardonnay, you tend to get these kind of layers and this savouriness and this length with age, which is why I love to age Chardonnay, and I love to drink it with I sort of say sort of 6 to 10 years. 8 years is right in the middle, so that makes me pretty happy. Um, but this one's 11 years old, and I think it's still kicking goals, so it's doing very, very well, which is really nice. Now, Craig, I haven't missed your comment. Craig is getting a soapy note on the nose, not unpleasant. I think that's that slightly floral character. I think that's that slightly floral character that's coming through. It's sort of, if you think about what soap smells like rather than the texture of soap, a lot of soap will have a little bit of kind of honey or white floral notes. Sometimes they'll have a bit of lemon citrus. This has got both of those characters, so maybe that's where that's coming from, maybe. There's a little bit of grapefruit rind in there as well that's just starting to come up, which is nice. So I think also, Sonia, that lovely kind of length that this wine now has, it's not all up front at the front of your palate. It kind of trails out longer as it gets older. And for me, to my mind, it's really good with food. So that's why I kind of suggested a slightly richer, slightly aromatic chicken dish, or some really nice cheese. Shell, I think that a Chev, it can be really delicious. A goat cheese can be really lovely with a Chardonnay as well, particularly if it's kind of a soft, not too strongly flavored Chev. I think can be really beautiful. And I do love a little bit of fresh goat's curd with a wine like this. Can be really lovely. The reason I talk about aged Gruyere all the time with old Chardonnay is that it's a really classic match in the Jura in France, where they make quite oxidized style Chardonnays. They're quite specific style of Chardonnay. When they get old, the classic match is aged Gruyere with these aged Jura Chardonnays. And I've done a little bit of trial and error with the Moorooduc wines, and even though we don't make them in that Jura style, we don't do that sort of strong oxidized kind of character, the wines develop enough nuttiness and richness with some age that make them really lovely with Gruyere, particularly if you can get one of those really high quality aged Gruyères that have the little crystals of salt through them, so you bite into the cheese and they kind of crunch in the back of your teeth. And they've got that really lovely buttery kind of a note to them, which I think works really well with this kind of wine. Okay, Cotty bought a 0 alcohol wine recently, tasted like lemon juice, not pleasant. Yeah, no, I think if you're trying to, I always say to people, it's always good to have, if you're feeling like you're maybe having a bit too much alcohol, an alcohol-free day or some low alcohol days are good. I'm not a big fan of alcohol-free beer because I think it feels like it's got a little hole in it. If you like beer and you like the taste of it and it works for you, why not? Alcohol-free gin, I've tried a few, and yes, it's kind of it's a similar facsimile of it, but I personally like to drink. I'll drink water and iced tea if I'm off the booze for a day or two, and that makes me quite happy. But anyway, if someone can crack making really delicious alcohol-free wine, that will be an amazing addition to the market. But I think just have a break every now and again if you're feeling like you're drinking too much. David, fresh. Is that Chardonnay is fresh, David? It definitely Shell sounds like something from the Lush store. Maybe not quite so floral and aromatic, but definitely. Craig is asking me a sea lip and tonic is actually not bad at all, David. I think if you're going to go for the non-alcoholic kind of gin substitute, the sea lip's pretty good. Anyway, we should come back to actually non-alcoholic substitutes for alcohol in another session, I reckon, because I think that could be quite interesting. Craig, does ageability of Chardonnay have any link to the amount of oak, or is that just because good Chardies get good oak? I don't think ageability of Chardonnay has anything to do with the amount of oak that the wine has, Craig. I think that there are some really great Chardonnays that have a lot of new oak. And I guess if you're talking about new oak versus oak maturation, that's two different things. There's not many people out there who are making Chardonnay in stainless steel or concrete vats anymore, because we've kind of realised that it's just not. Fiona, that's hilarious. Fiona's just said if you spin around on the spot a few times, it's a good alcohol substitute. Thank you very much for that. That's excellent. Oak doesn't make wine better, but better quality wine can handle more oak. So better quality fruit will have more intensity, more complexity, and will kind of absorb the oak flavours more, whereas lesser quality fruit will tend to look thin with excessive oak, and so then you'll get this kind of imbalance with the wine. That said, this wine from 2012, I think this Robinson Chardonnay probably had about 30% new oak, so not huge quantities. And I think to my mind, and Richard's just arrived with his cashew nuts, so he might be able to remember. I didn't look up in the book, Dad. We're having a conversation about oak and ageability of Chardonnay, and I thought this probably had about 30% new. But it doesn't say on the label. It's the 2012 Robinson Chardonnay.
Probably less than that.
Possibly less than that, more like 25 in 2012. So not a huge amount of new oak, but I think the quality of the fruit and the quality of the oak also has helped it to sort of. I think if the wine is balanced when it's young, it should, and it's got enough concentration and quality there, then it should age well. If people give you a wine and go, it's not very good at the moment, but it just needs 10 years age, buy it and put it in your cellar and drink it in 10 years, just be a little suspicious, because I think that there are some wines that will be better with some age, but they should still show evidence that they're going to be delicious in the future when they're young. Cotty, when in the winemaking process do you decide how much new or old oak is used? So, Cotty, we really decide quite early on, because you have to buy new barrels about 6 months before the vintage. So we don't even know how big the vintage is going to be often when we're ordering barrels from France. And it's always a good idea to use as many of your new barrels as you can, because if you don't put wine in the barrels, then they tend to dry out and they lose quality. So we try and get the number of barrels right. And these days, when we're kind of looking at maybe 5 to 15% new oak, we're probably buying less new barrels because we've got a lot of older barrels that are in good condition. So that's one of the advantages of having done this for a while. But when we're making final decisions about what goes where, then the percentage of oak is quite important. We'll do some blends, and if, particularly in recent years with Robinson Chardonnay and McIntyre Chardonnay, where we've had very small quantities, if you do one new barrel and say 3 or 4 older barrels, I'm just, playing. Don't assume that that's the sort of quantities that we're making, but let's just say we do that, and you blend it together and there's too much new oak as a percentage in the wine, we can use half a barrel of the new oak and then the rest can go to estate wine or something like that. So we have a bit of control over that, but you need to put wine into a barrel. With the Chardonnays, we put the juice in straight after they've been pressed, so it goes into barrel straight away. So we go, okay, well, we'll put that, we'll do a new barrel for that batch, and we'll do a new barrel for that batch. If it's not good enough, then it gets declassified to the estate wine. So we'll usually have a bit of extra new oak that we don't need. David Inchley, 2011. I'm sorry, it's probably in response to something that I said, but I can't remember what I said. So if that was a question or a comment, can you elucidate me, please? How many vintages for an older barrel? So, so old barrels, depending on how well we look after them and depending on how they drink later. Oh, yeah, absolutely. 2011 was a vintage that we needed to kind of hold on to for a while and get people to try with a little bit of age. That's absolutely right. We have barrels, most of our older barrels are maybe up to about 10 years old. We've got a really good system looking after our barrels. So we wash them with hot water and we steam them and we get them pretty clean and we have wine in them most of the time. So that's the best way to look after barrels. And if you do that and you don't get any nasty yeasts or infections in the barrels, which so far, touch wood, we haven't had a problem with, then barrels can last for 10 years, maybe longer. Just depends on how well they go. You only get flavour from a barrel for the first couple of years. You get most of the flavour in the first year. You get, the way we look after our barrels, you get quite a lot of flavour, good flavour in the second year, and then after that, they're really just kind of very gently breathing receptacles for wine to age in. Peter and Karen, do the French have speedier access to barrels? Well, they're all made in, French oak barrels. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you've got Coopers all around Bordeaux and all around Burgundy, and most producers will have a personal relationship, particularly the high-end producers. Hello, Sue and Jeff. Welcome. Another Jeff has just become a grandfather. We've got Linda's a grandma, Jeff's a grandfather. Congratulations. On the same night, in fact, weird that. Barrels, yes. So a lot of fancier Burgundy and Bordeaux producers will have a personal relationship with their barrel makers, and they will go and pick out the wood and pick out the barrels and have a lot of interaction. We have to trust our barrel rep. We are Dad's saying Tonellery, but I'm saying we need to trust the person who's selecting the barrels for us for Australia. We have some lovely people who sell our barrels to us, and one of the reasons that we buy the barrels that we do is because we trust the people who sell them to us, because they talk to the Tonellery and they get good quality oak for us. So it has to travel halfway across the world, and a lot of people will say that oak barrels are a little bit like coffee beans. The longer you leave them after they've been made and cured or roasted for coffee beans, the less good they are. We don't have quality tonneliers in Australia that make barrels that we want to use. There's the Simon Johns in Adelaide, I think, or in South Australia, makes some pretty good barrels, but we like the barrels that we get from France. So at the moment, we have to continue getting them, but we use less and less new oak as our wine style evolves and the quality of our fruit and the way we make the wine evolves. So we're using the best quality oak that we can get in slightly lower percentages. So I think it all kind of evens out in the end. Cotty has asked, can you save a barrel that's been infected, shaving, sterilisation? No, the best thing to do is to burn it. You don't want any wine anywhere near a barrel that's had Brettanomyces is the worst problem. It's a yeast, it's a spoilage yeast. And once it's in wood, there's nothing you can do to get rid of it, and you just want it to not be there anymore. So if you have a barrel that has got a problem, burn it is the best bit of advice. Craig wants to know if they experimented with other types of wood. Some people have. There's certainly oak from other parts of Europe that people that people will use. There's a few people in Australia who are kind of looking at Australian hardwood. I'm not that interested in that at the moment, and I don't think Dad is either. But good on them. I think that's a good thing to play around with. And if anyone has some amazing breakthroughs, then we'll be definitely very interested to see how that goes. Australian gum tree barrels, maybe for Riesling, maybe Peter and Karen. More Australian hardwood, eucalyptus barrel, I think, could be, unless you're looking for a really minty Shiraz or Riesling, maybe. But I think probably Moorooduc will be steering clear of eucalyptus barrels for the time being, anyway. So, guys, how's your Chardonnay looking? Let's have another final. All that honey and sort of clotted cream kind of notes are coming up now, which is really, really lovely. If you're making alcoholic mouthwash, thank you, Fiona. Yes, that's sort of my feeling. I think we need to. I do think less oak, better quality fruit is our favourite attitude at the moment. Peter says we're stepping on Retsina territory. Yes, well, we'll leave that well enough alone. Craig, I'm sure you are looking around for a second bottle. It's pretty Moorish, so I hope you find something delicious to drink. I think we should probably finish about now, but before we do, what would people like to do next week? Shall we have a talk about Riesling and have a glass of Riesling together? Nothing to do with Moorooduc. You bring your own bottle of whatever. We can talk about German Riesling. We can talk about Australian Riesling. We can talk about Austrian Riesling. We can talk about French Riesling and everything else in between. We could do cocktails. I have a feeling that less of you are interested in cocktails. So you might want to send me a little. We could do the aviation. Millie has just popped up. Hello, Millie. Welcome. So Millie's voting for the aviation. So maybe we'll maybe Alison, that's it. But you've got twice as many people to drink it. So there you go. So maybe we'll talk about Riesling and we'll talk about aviations, and we'll see if we can like mix it all up a bit. Which would be quite fun. So an aviation is a gin-based cocktail, which if you haven't discovered before, it's one of my favourites at the moment. It is a bit of a specialised one. You need to find creme de violette. So there's a challenge for you all. I will send you an email, I promise, on Monday with all of the details. We'll do the aviation. We'll maybe talk a little bit about Riesling as well for people who don't feel like cocktails. We're just gonna open it up to everything next week. So next week will be nice sort of open forum with an aviation or a glass of Riesling. Creme de violette, Fiona. It's violet flavoured liqueur. I found some in Mount Eliza at the fine wine store. You only need a tiny dash, but it's quite important to the both the colour and the flavour of the cocktail. So more on that next week. I will send you a list of ingredients that you need to gather if you want to make one for yourself. Maraschino liqueur is also important. So it's gin, lemon juice, creme de violette, and maraschino liqueur. Dan Murphy should have it. You might have to get it online rather than going in to buy it. Peter, you cannot have a flaming aviation. Well, you can if you want, but I don't recommend it. Welcome. It's nice to see you there, Peter. I hope you've got Nina with you and you're enjoying your glass of wine. Yes, Ryan Reynolds Aviator Gin. You can absolutely double up there, Craig. You can get some Aviator Gin. My Welsh friends in the UK will be very excited because the Aviator Gin has sponsored the Wrexham Football Club, so it's all coming together now. All of the tendrils of the conversation are kind of coalescing into one big mess. Fiona, it's actually sounds like jet fuel. I like it. I've got to say, an aviation is a very classy old-fashioned cocktail. I might even see if I can get the lovely Peter, who's helping us with vintage, who is American and who has excellent wine knowledge, but also good cocktail knowledge. I might see if I can. Peter, I don't know if you're there. Hello. We might see if we can get Peter to help us about. Peter McIntyre, you can tell us a joke about the French fighter pilot next week. On that note, and for the Flaming Mo, I'm going to say thank you very much, everyone. And Millie, oh, Peter, are you Millie? Are you? I'm getting very confused. Millie and Peter are both helping. Lovely to see you all. Hello, Peter, there, talking with Millie. Excellent. I might have to get you to come and help me with my cocktails next week. Until then, take care, everyone. Cheers. I hope you find something good else to drink if you finish this, because I've still got a little glass left to go. It's rather lovely. I'll see you all next week. Cheers.